The 3-minute thesis.
Seminar.
Yes. This time, this place in 2 weeks.
The actual 3-MT is like another 2 weeks after that.
It's like, I think the college one's February 13th. I think it's a Tuesday, if I remember right, a Tuesday afternoon.
The college deadline for application is next Thursday, so you have to apply for the college school department. Sorry, everybody.
So apply for the college one, do the department one, do the college one in that order. Any other announcements from IPSO?
Any-
Sign up for soup. We always want soup signups early in the semester. Any other announcements from anyone? There are a lot of defenses going on right now. I know that I'm participating in one on Friday. There's a couple others that I've seen come through the email list, so just make sure you get stay on top of that. Winter semester is always, it's a lot easier than fall usually to get that requirement taken care of. I think that's it then. So we'll turn the time over to Rick West, Heather Leary, two of our faculty who are going to lead a discussion, as well as probably, I think, some input from others in the department about some of the open textbooks that we have in the department. So if you'll join me in welcoming all of them to our seminar today.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you for coming today. So as you know, we embrace the open textbook culture here in our department. Boy, I've been speaking too much Spanish lately, Stephanie. I said a key. Anyway, but when we talk about new students coming to our program, one of the biggest pitches that we give them is they say, well, what can you do to help us? Do you have financial aid? Do you have scholarships available? And we do, and many of you know that. And we talk to them about that. And I say, but the other thing you should know is that your average textbook cost in our program is going to be about $15. And they said, oh, yeah, for each book? I said, no, like for your entire program. And their jaw just kind of drops and they get really excited. So we're pushing towards having enough books that we can have what's called a Z degree. So there's your new vocabulary for today. A Z degree is a zero textbook cost degree. And that's something that we don't have quite yet. We're missing a few. And I'm guilty myself. I've used a commercial book in a couple things that I've taught, but we're getting there and we're hoping to get there. So, but one of the things about having all of these books is you have EdTech books in this big database of books, is there are some gems in there that I think many people don't know about. Particularly, like you all know probably about the Foundations book and the Instructional Design book, because everybody takes those classes. But what if you don't take one of the elective classes? You may not know about, for example, some really great methodology books that Randy's been working on. And then you might be needing to use that methodology and would benefit from having a methodology book. And you don't realize that there's a book there available for you because you never took the class with Randy. So that's what we were hoping today. We were talking as faculty and said it'd be really great if we could just have a day where we let everyone know about the different books on there and maybe make them aware of them if they're not. So we've got about 20 books on here and we're going to give like a 2-minute pitch on each book and just go through this kind of rapidly. And Heather and I are going to talk about some. I know Randy does. And then does anyone work with Charles on his books for K-12? The blended learning books?
The higher education one, you know.
Okay, so I think he's got maybe the K-12 and the higher education one in there. I'm wondering if you guys can maybe talk about those briefly when we get there. Charles put his books on there. And some of these books, like Charles's books, I think may not be books that you'll use as researchers, but may be books that you'll want to use as practitioners. And so once again, this is something that you should know about, that there are these great resources. And Royce is here too, and he can talk about this as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And we'll try to, I should have put a timer on here. Heather had given like 2 minutes per book or something like that. I don't know.
Hold the timer if you want.
All right, so I think you're talking about the foundation.
Oh, sure.
About anything that's new in the second edition and also just maybe things that students in the class aren't aware of.
Yeah, so you all know in 520, we use the Foundations book. And we've been working on this second edition last semester. Some of the students got to read some chapters from this and then some chapters from the first edition.
It's basically 90% done. We're
Yeah.
just cleaning up a couple things.
We're getting there. It's almost finished. But this is really like the introduction to the field, definitions and history. There's a lot of vocabulary in there. And it goes through different areas listed here: learning and instruction, design models and processes, ed tech, future of the field. If you go, I think there should be another slide.
Can I say one thing about definitions? This is new as of a week ago. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. But Royce has now instituted AI to provide automatic definitions of any book in the EdTech book system. So when you talk about definitions, we were spending a heck of a lot of work putting together a glossary for this textbook. And then Royce, as programmers do, facilitated our work by just writing some scripts. And so now there's definitions for any word you highlight will show up the definitions if you're not familiar with it.
And if the definition isn't there yet, correct me if I'm wrong, if you click on it and highlight it, it will find one for it.
Right.
It'll go looking for it, right? Yeah. So go in and click on words so it builds definitions for us, you guys. Okay, so there's the whole book is great. There's really great chapters all throughout, but I wanted to highlight a few that I think you should look at. The first is the timeline that Jennifer Ramsey put together. It's awesome. Go in, look at it. It gives a really nice history of the field in a time.
So detailed, we had to break it into 4 timelines.
It's awesome.
4 periods.
Yeah, it's
very
really
detailed.
great. And that will be helpful for many things, and you never know when you need that, but it's there. I love the design thinking and agile design. Oh, there's my 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
That Vanessa did, and then there's 2 learning experience design, the one I put here, but then there's an evaluation of learning experience design chapter as well. And they kind of go together. The learning analytics one, and then Jason did this fabulous one about the future of the field that everyone should read. So those are the ones I wanted to point out because
So they're ones that are different and maybe different from the first edition.
Yeah.
So if you might not have read them already. We're in this book, we're trying to have a debate at the end of like different vision for the future. And Jason's is that there will not be design in the future of our field. So
rebuttal for Jason. Maybe we can do a seminar and everybody can rebuttal with Jason on
what he says there, but it's actually, he has a good point. That
with him.
he has a good point that he's making in the chapter. It's really good.
It's a good.
And we have a new future of the field chapter coming that will be about AI. And so that will be relevant to a lot of people too. And so there's some good stuff here. Like the learning analytics chapter is great.
Yeah.
There's some good kind of current stuff in this that are.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Okay. So the second thing that we've done is we've created a book that is for people like yourself trying to become a professional in the field. This used to be part of the foundations book, but it got so big that we broke it off as a separate book. It has 2 sections. By the way, if you see Rebecca Nissen made these images here. I think actually Royce helped with this one. So Royce did this one. And the idea is the metaphor of a tree that we're growing into the field and there's roots, trunks, and branches. And then Rebecca said, well, we're becoming, and so she put a little tree sapling. Isn't that cute? So this is us as professionals growing in the field and we're a little tree sapling. So the books go together and there's 2 sections. One is on how to develop skills and competencies for the field. And then the second one is about specific careers. I'll kind of show you some examples of that. These are some of the chapters that I like from this book that you might think about, but the whole book is great. These are some of the skills chapters. For example, there's one about the mindsets that you need as a designer, the skill sets and the tool sets, and then how to make a plan for what mindsets, tool sets, and skill sets you lack, and how to grow the mindsets, tool sets, and skill sets that you need. And I thought that was a very clever way of organizing one's professional development. So that was a great chapter. There's a great chapter that gives a framework called the 4 Ps for how to network at conferences and get to know people and create connections. There is a chapter that's about which journals are most important to publish in our field, where they surveyed 80 people in the field and asked them what journals are most important. So they kind of talk about that. There's going to be a similar one about conferences that is being worked on still right now. There is a really, really good chapter on ethics, guys. Really good. I think it's the best discussion on ethics in our field that I've seen anywhere. And it's by these people. One of them, Stephanie Moore, is an editor of a major journal. These are all major people. And it's a very thoughtful approach to how to think about ethics. So that's a great one to look at as well.
Just released an entire book on EdTech books about ethics in the field as well.
Is it the same authors?
It's Stephanie Moore is the main author.
And as the main author. So there you go, a summary of that book. Thank you, Royce. That's what we're talking about. I didn't know that existed. So there I go. I learned something new. But that chapter is really great as maybe a miniature of that book. So there's another great one about how to develop visual communication skills, which I think Royce is going to talk about a book about that. But there's a chapter on that and how to incorporate that into your portfolio, which a lot of you are doing in this department. So that's great. So there are these kind of skill chapters that are very specific to how to do things in the field. But then there are these career chapters where we've got people who have jobs in different areas of our field. And they say, here's how you, here's what the people want you to have as far as skills for this kind of job. Here's how you get those skills. Here's how you apply for this job. Here's how you find this job. Here's how you succeed in this job. And it's things like we've got government and military professionals talking about what the job looks like and the terminology, which I didn't realize that they use in their job in the military. Corporate world, there's a great one on consulting. If you've ever wondered how to do independent consulting in our field, there's a chapter on that. So there's some really great chapters about different careers in the field, which I think is great. Anything else on that one, Heather? Okay. Another one that I've been working on is a book called Failing Forward. So we were sitting in the lab one day, some of you may have heard this story, and I was sitting there talking to Yahweh, who was one of our students. She's left now, and she had gotten back a revise and resubmit on her paper, which, as we know as faculty, is a good thing. That means they're willing to read a second version. That means they liked it enough that they're willing to read it again. And she was kind of depressed, and she says, I can't believe they didn't accept it. They want me to revise it. I can't believe this. And she looked at me and Heather and said, you guys never have to revise your papers for the journals. And we just went, what are you talking about? You know, that's so, I said, obviously, we have not communicated very well that failing is part of the process, that is just the way it works. And I get way more rejection notices than I get accepted notices. You know, that's just the way it works. And so we said, all right, let's do a book on this. And so we're collecting case stories on here. You can read in this book a story of a future AECT president and college dean getting completely cussed out and F-bombed at one of her first presentations, and how she recovered from that embarrassing situation and made it into a milestone of her career. You can talk, Dave Wiley talks about his early struggles getting started with grant writing and with research. I think we're gonna have a case study about somebody who struggled to get tenure at one university, but then succeeded afterwards. And so these are some real, really difficult experiences that people had. And they talk about how they then became successes as part of their career journey. So kind of normalizing failure. So that's a book that could be an interesting one to read. They're very short, like 1,000 words. They're not very long. Okay, open aims. So the idea in this book, and we're just getting this one going, is it's a book, but it's really more of a repository where people can share assessments and instruments for other people to use. If you tried looking for an assessment, which I had to do recently for a grant I was writing, and I needed a particular kind of assessment of a particular construct, and they're all behind paywalls and you have to pay money for these assessments. And so we thought that's kind of bogus. If we believe in open education, then we need to make the assessments open as well. So if you're working on an assessment or an instrument as part of maybe a project you do in this department, and you want to publish it and make it free and accessible to everybody, this is an option for you. Or eventually, hopefully, we'll have options here for you to use, assessments that you can use that will just be openly available with the validation data and the reliability data for you to use, and then use those instruments in your own work. All right, last one I think that I'm going to be talking about, and this isn't my book, but I want to talk on behalf of somebody else. This is a book that I have found very helpful. Anybody know who David Williams was? Or is, besides the faculty? Yes, you're kind of semi-faculty. Who is he?
Was he a former faculty?
He was a former faculty member, now missionary in Germany, I just found out on Facebook today. But he was our qualitative expert in this department for a long time. And he wrote this book before we had EdTech books. He just did it as a blog, I think, at a time. And I think it's a really great book. So if you need a book on qualitative research methods and you don't want to pay for it, here's a great book that's available and online for you. And I'll tell you that my favorite parts of this book, David was very skilled at observation, and he was a very observant individual and really great at his notes. And so his descriptions of his observations of the school that he was studying really helped me understand how I need to be richer and deeper in my own observation work. So I really like his discussion about observations, about field notes, and he has a great chapter on trustworthiness. So if you ever are sitting there trying to figure out who do I cite related to trustworthiness and qualitative research, and what is trustworthiness and qualitative research, Dave has a great summary of those ideas in his books. Those are the books that I wanted to highlight for right now. Okay, can my Charles surrogates maybe talk about Charles's books?
None of those. I can talk about this. That's not mine. These are the books that are used for 373. Well, that first one mainly. The other ones are kind of like supporting books for specific disciplines within K-12 education. So yeah, it just gives a lot of content about online and blended integration with schools and how to do online interactions. Just useful things that K-12 teachers need to know in order to teach in today's day and age. So,
How could we use these as us in this department? How could students use this? What's the practical benefit of some of these books?
for any teachers out there that want specific tips on how to create better discussion boards or specific ways to include blended learning in like is specifically like elementary or secondary education. I don't know what K-12 is, but want any tips for how to include blended teaching? So doing station rotations or just any ideas that you might need to revamp your curriculum, I would say.
Really good practical tips in there, really good about here's how to do it as a teacher.
We guys have one that we're working on currently for higher education, mostly for designers or teachers who need to design their course, but I think it's not published yet.
It'll be coming in, it'll be the same kind of thing.
Yep.
And I will say that one of the things I've appreciated about these books is they're written to be they're not research heavy, they're very practice oriented, they're easy to read, lots of images, lots of graphics, and lots of really practical tips, lots of videos. So they're very multimedia rich. I've used them in my own work, trying to teach people how to do blended learning. Like when I have to give a workshop on blended learning, I use these books. So. Good stuff there. All right, yeah, and here's this one that he's working on. Exactly right there. So. See if we can move on. Okay, anyone know about this book? Learner engagement.
It's the same one, just in the Mongolia setting.
Okay. Oh, so this is more just for that. Yeah. All right, Randy, do you want to talk about your books? And you can either do it from there or if you want to come up, either way. I can move the slides if you want to stay there. It's up to you.
Well, I started ahead, come up. Not listen to Jason. I first of all got to tell you that there's someone in the department that you all know and love, and that's Royce. He inspired me a few years ago with his ed tech books, and so I was looking at resources for some of my courses, and this is one of them. Well, this is a course that I designed that isn't a real course, but everybody should take. And so this is if ever you're doing research that requires survey research, and then we say things like, well, you're doing a linear equation and you need to learn the stats, so you need to take this stats course. And nobody ever thinks about, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this stats course. But then they say, okay, and now you have to do a survey. And they say, well, just do it. And you don't know how to do it. Or you think you know how to do it and you don't know how to do it. And so this book and this course was designed to go through the basics of doing your survey research. So you can learn how to calculate your vectors, but also other kinds of things. So like if you've ever done a survey that says, and this is accurate to plus or minus 4%, things like that, those stats are in there for how to do it. You'll probably glaze over it, but it does tell you how to do it. It's got some other things that's important about sampling techniques, response bias, some things that you need to know when you're doing your survey research so that you can make sure that it doesn't adversely affect all the things that you're going to do. It goes through the process of kind of getting your research questions done and different things like that. Those have taken the course. I usually have you, if it's a 515R course that I was supposed to teach this summer, but then I have to teach, I don't know, I think it's Royce's class that's going on PDL or something. So I'm not teaching that one, but we usually teach that it's every 2 years. That's a long time, but if you're doing survey research, this kind of goes through the basics for doing that kind of stuff. And I think that's about it for that one. This next one is just one that I used for 661. Again, during COVID, just before COVID, we wrote this, and it was fortuitous that we did that because then we went into COVID and this was the textbook that we used. We didn't really have a textbook for 662, and I think you were using
Readings, yeah.
just different readings and things like that. And the resources that were out there were a little antiquated. And so this one was our effort to kind of bring in the design, the evaluation and design component that I love where's the E and IP&T? Well, that's the evaluation, and that's this book. And it shows you how to do different evaluations throughout the design process. That's what it's for. And it's obviously, I wrote it, but it needs revision, and it needs to be improved at different times, but we're getting there too. Yeah, that's that one. This one is in draft. Cecil Short is the co-author on this one. He's a former student in this program. He's teaching over in, I don't remember where, somewhere.
Kansas?
Yes, Texas, Kansas, somewhere. Yeah, and he and I were at ACT and we were talking about some of these things, and I said, I'm putting together this textbook because we are trying to be a Z degree, and the textbook that we're using is really good for this class, but it costs money for students to do. And I thought, why shouldn't we just do our own? And so Cecil and I he was teaching some assessment courses as well. So we're putting this together. It's going to be done this summer. So it'll be done by July, this summer. And we've got all of the stuff, you're talking about validating instruments, that's in here. So if you need to know how to validate an instrument, that's in here. And then there's the item writing guidelines, although ChatGPT is going to take over for us and it's going to make us do all those things. By the way, those of you who are taking 652, you have to do all of your assignments, generative AI, because all of the things, all the projects that I had going for this class, now I realize you can do much better with generative AI kinds of things. And then your role changes, but that's all in there too. And then there is one more textbook, but that's further on, and that is the program evaluation textbook that we're putting together too, because I'm trying to get a textbook for all my classes into Royce's textbooks, and before I retire, then it'll all be there.
Bad word. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Randy. All right, Royce.
Yeah, so I hope that you're all thinking about, these kinds of tools, not just as a student, like what you're using in your classes, but the nice thing is that these are both fully available. So like when you go into a job setting, if your employer doesn't know what an instructional designer does, you might think, well, where's a chapter that I can point them to? Or if you're working in a team, you need to introduce someone to learning analytics. Oh, here's something that I can use for professional development in my professional setting. So a lot of these resources were created for our classes, but a lot of them are also created for professional development situations. And so this one emerged out of 510 when I was teaching that one, and Dr. West contributed some to that as well. One of the best things I'd point everyone to is this APA 7 job aid. And this is really just me, after mentoring lots and lots of students and having back and forth with our program coordinators about revisions that need to be made to theses and dissertations, and also reviewing so many articles where professors don't know APA 7. It's more than one page, but these are all the core mistakes that people make. And if you can master kind of just this one document, which is only like 3 or 4 pages long, it helps you understand how to use commas, which interestingly, most graduate students don't know how to use. And things like that. So it's really useful, I'd say, especially that chapter. Cecil, you mentioned a second ago, said this is his new favorite resource. All of his students always use that one. Next one. This is from 655, the digital interface design class. So it's mainly focused on Illustrator. So this is, if you're interested in learning Illustrator on your own, you go there. There are lots of example activities. Lots of resource, we rely heavily on YouTube tutorials and things, but this gives you a framework for going through and learning Illustrator in a way that's pertinent for our field. And there's a practical chapter on how to use colors effectively in instructional design. know, it's.
Which I will say, if you want to know what sold us on Royce when he was applying to the job, it was that presentation on color theory. And it blew us all away. We were like, that's brilliant. And then he was brilliant for a lot of reasons.
Okay, so this one came about with 629, and different folks teach 629, but this is me trying to pull things together and create and this one, this is still in the works. I've been working on this one for years. My anticipation is that it'll continue for multiple years. I only add to it when I'm actually teaching 629, so I'm not teaching that right now, so it's not growing. But these are some of the useful chapters. But some that I really point to students to regularly is if you're doing any kind of a study, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, just understanding generally how to do sampling. This chapter gives you an overview of all the different sampling methods you can do versus randomized versus intentional sampling, purposeful sampling with different methods of purposeful sampling, sensitive sampling, all that kind of stuff. And this one gives you an overview, and I wrote this one, I took David Williams' chapter and I built on it. And so this is both of us that did this one, but if you're doing a qualitative research study, you're writing your methods section or trying to figure out how do I establish rigor, that's a good chapter to go to, these boom, 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 these are the different things that I need to do. And then the ethics chapter is a good overview of, my undergrad is in philosophy, and this chapter was just a really exciting opportunity for me to take what I learned in philosophy and kind of apply it to education. So it's probably not as practical as Stephanie Moore's chapters, but it's more foundational, I think, in understanding kind of the lay of the land of how we deal with ethics or should deal with ethics in our field.
See, this is why I wanted this seminar. I didn't realize you had an ethics chapter there, Royce, so I'm gonna have to go look at that. I knew about your sampling chapter. I've used that a lot with many students, so that's a good one.
And they're pretty. I think visuals, at least on the sampling chapter.
All right.
Okay, this one's cool. I put together an international editorial team do this, but the idea was let's create a peer-reviewed open encyclopedia of educational technology so that if I have a student coming into my class and they've never heard of learning analytics before, what can I point them to that's reliable and but also isn't a 50-page research paper on it, but just helps them to understand the lay of the land for this thing that is learning analytics. And so this, I give you the example of PICRAD here. So you're in a class, you hear about PICRAD, well, I want to learn what is that? This is a great place to go. These articles tend to be only about 1,000 words. It's also something that you can publish in. So you submit articles here. They're again, easy to write, 1,000 to 1,500 words. I've had students who've recently graduated turn around, and then we just had one who became an expert in online mentoring, turned around and then just wrote up a 1,000-word article in online mentoring and submitted that here. So now hopefully the idea is that this becomes kind of the place people go to for finding definitions or establishing definitions in the field for specific terms. Side note, that's also the way to get cited is if you write a foundational resource that or a foundational article that defines a term, you can get cited much more. And so this is also kind of a sneaky way of doing that if you really want to get cited, write a really good article that defines these emergent terms for the field, and then it's anticipated you get cited a lot for that. Right. Yeah. Oh, and I guess I'll just mention, it's also really cool for a lot of reasons, but we think still the majority of our authors on this particular publication are women, and the majority are outside the United States. So it represents a diverse view of the field that is representative of the actual people doing the work.
Yeah. That's been fun as EdTech Books is growing. I think we're getting more ability to recruit authors from all over the place. I know in the Foundations book, we've got a Bloom's Taxonomy chapter from a practitioner in India. And it's a great little history on Bloom's Taxonomy. So if you ever wonder what Bloom's Taxonomy was about, there's a great chapter on that. And then the Learning Analytics one, I think, is from Australia. And that's a great chapter. There's a gaming chapter from Australia too, like educational games. So really
Yeah, did everybody read all the books like Rick said you were supposed to before you came today?
Okay, I was up really late last night.
This one was kind of a precursor to Ed Technica. This was when I was teaching 510 and trying to create authentic assignments for students. So the idea was like, when you write your article or write your paper for 510, let's figure out a way of publishing it. This is still available, like this is still something students can submit to if there's a topic that you're writing on, particularly in a class like 510, that you write like, I don't know, a 3,000 word article on that you want to try to get published. This is a place to go for that. We've had other faculty from other universities do this with their students, so this is not just BYU students in here. But I think the really exciting thing about this is that there are probably like 3 or 4 articles in this book that are the most trafficked articles across all of EdTech books.
Wow.
And so like this socioculturalism one by Bodona Allman, the constructivism one, and cognitivism one. And that's really cool because like these are articles written by students that are now reaching thousands and sometimes millions of people, but they're also being heavily cited. So for the students that wrote these highly trafficked articles, they're still like the most cited articles or most cited publications they have in their Google Scholar program. Cool. And this one was for 371. This is the first one that I started working on and I haven't touched in a long time, but there's still a lot of good resources here. This is geared toward K-12 teachers. And so like, I use this in 371 for teaching undergrads, but it also is really useful for professional development. If I'm going into a school and I'm going to teach them about open resources, for instance, and I want them to get a basic understanding of copyright beforehand, this is a great thing that I could point them to, this copyright and open licensing chapter. I actually use this particular chapter in a lot of my grad classes as well as an introduction to copyright open. Yeah. And if you're using the system and want to figure out how to do something, here's the user guide. And this is constantly being updated. This is more geared toward authors in the system and editors. And I guess I think that's my last one. Is it?
I think so.
Okay. So I'll just say too, understand the context for this. None of this stuff existed 6 years ago. So like, this is really rapidly developing. And so much of it is because of faculty who are investing in it, but then also students who are investing in it. I think I have 4 or 5 students right now who are doing projects related to EdTech books, either like creating content or doing design development work or evaluation work. And it's exciting for a lot of reasons. I don't know, I'm sure you probably have something you're going to wrap up on, but like, I'll just testify to you that like the impact that we're able to have with this is really exciting. And it gives me purpose and direction for the things that I'm doing. And it's so cool to see the work that you do, like the APA 7 job aid, for instance. I just put that together kind of just one afternoon. I've updated it since then. But like to see this thing that I was able to like just put on paper and put out there, and now it has a huge impact for other people is great. And like everyone in this room has far more knowledge and resources and wisdom, so knowledge and resources than everyone in this room is more highly educated than the average person on the earth, which means that we have resources and knowledge that we can share that would benefit other people. And so if you're sitting there thinking, well, I can't, what could I share? What could I do? One of the exciting things about this is that it empowers everybody to take the time, talents, and resources that we have and use those to benefit God's children on the earth, right? And so the analogy that I'm trying to apply to this whole EdTech books and open platform is the idea of like the giving machine. Have you ever seen those? I know a lot of you have taken my classes, you're sick of hearing that analogy, but like if you're walking to lunch and you see a giving machine there, it's these big red giving machines where you can like buy a polio vaccine for someone on the other side of the world. That giving machine does not create generosity. It doesn't like make you a generous person. It doesn't turn you into a generous person. But like the thing is, you are already a generous person. You just didn't have a means of taking what you have and benefiting God's children that needed your help. And what the giving machine does is it connects those two together. It takes your generosity and what might seem to you to be a meager contribution, like $5, and takes it and multiplies it and provides benefit to people that would greatly benefit from what you have. And I think in the same way, we all have knowledge and wisdom and resources and tools available to us that would greatly benefit other people. We just need giving machine type things to connect us with those who would benefit from what we have to offer. And I think you can see that happening through a lot of these tools. So
So that was, we were pretty much at the end, Royce, maybe before you run away too much. I didn't know how much time we were gonna have left. And we have some time. So, I had one other book I was gonna maybe share. I saved it for the end because I thought we were gonna run out of time. So if it's all right, I'll maybe share that, but maybe let you collect your thoughts. And then I'm wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit about what's coming next in EdTech Books and maybe how these students could participate if they want to. So I'll let you think about that for just a second. So the one that I kind of saved to the end because I thought we were gonna run out of time and we didn't. But this was a book that Jared Burp and I did for just practitioners. And it's basically based on our research about asynchronous video. So how do you use video to improve social presence? And it's a series of articles. The articles I think are easier to read than a lot of research articles. They're full of memes and videos and like images and stuff like that. It's meant to be kind of fun, a fun read. And there's several chapters there on social presence. If you want to know what social presence is, you want to know how to use video to improve social presence, it's in there. I'm just gonna throw out though that Jared has a chapter that I wish everyone would read because it's the coolest little chapter about when you're doing video, and this could be synchronous or asynchronous, but he's trying to give practical tips to teachers about how to, if you don't know very much about how to record things, how to make good recordings. And he talks about what not to do, and he has these funny little videos. These are actually like GIFs, so you see him actually talking and moving. But where he comes up with these funny names for like bad ways of doing video, like the silhouette where you're sitting with the light behind you, or the zebra where you're facing now the blinds and you've got the zebra look. And he's got several of these. He's got like 6 or 7 of these. And I've used this chapter in workshops with professors and K-12 teachers, and they all think it's just really helpful because they don't know, if you're not a video professional, you don't know how to set up your camera. And Jared gives some really good tips and strategies for how to set up a camera and how to record good videos. So that's kind of a fun chapter there. But that was all I really had there, Royce. So maybe just for the final 5-10 minutes that we've got, what new things are coming in EdTech Books or have you released recently that we should be aware of? Like the definition thing that people didn't know about, but I told them about. Are there things like that? And maybe how can they get involved?
Great, thank you. Yeah, so maybe I'll just maybe talk big picture for a second and then talk like specific features. I guess one big picture thing to realize is that this isn't like we've been saying EdTech Books. It's not just EdTech Books. So EdTech Books is kind of focused on the field of educational technology or like IT. But like this same model and platform and approach can be applied in a variety of other settings as well at the institutional level or elsewhere. So like open.byu.edu, this is the same technology. It's using a lot of the same resources, but we're seeing increased use of this in other fields. So like French and Italian textbooks up here. We have Spanish ones coming.
Spanish one?
What?
You have a Spanish one?
Not yet. But there should be one coming. French and Italian for sure. Well, let me just show some cool things because like this French book, like if you've used EdTech Books at all, we have some of this like automated text to speech stuff, but we have it in French too.
Objectif, identifier les noms
In
et
Italian,
déterminer leur genre et
and
nom.
so and like we're providing translations and things. So we have more people outside of just our faculty here at BYU using it. So like using it in chemistry and a variety of other fields. Humanities have lots of books on here actually. This is a BYU approved logo, which is actually hard to get. But it means that this is recognized by BYU as a BYU thing, which is good and cool. So if you're creating resources on EdTech Books or open.byu.edu, they can be cross-listed across the two. We can include them on both. It just depends on like kind of what your
I
content
have a
is.
question, Royce, about
Yeah.
that. How do you get it cross-listed?
Just tell me. And I can
Okay.
flip it.
One of the things that our faculty in our department were worried about was like longevity of this. And so investing so much time into and putting it on a platform when you don't know how long
Yeah.
it's going to be there.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in our 6th year now. We've been working with the Office of Tech Transfer, trying to figure out additional sustainability supports for it. So I don't know, I can't say too much about maybe at this point about where we're at with that. But I can just tell you, so like from the very first of this, the way that we designed it, we approached it was that we didn't want it to be dependent upon a grant because grants run out. And so it's not. And so part of it is how it's designed is to be cost effective enough that it can be run without any like really a lot of funding. So like I think, so the department pays for like our cloud services and things for that. And it's such, we've been able to keep costs so low that that's a very easy argument to make for the department. In fact, pretty much any department that is using it could pay for it for everybody. And so there's that piece. So like that sustainability piece of it, I think is really easy to address. The larger picture is like ongoing development, like how do like, and that's what I'm trying to figure out is like, how do we ensure that this is something that's not just stagnant, but continues to grow in terms of the software itself? And so that's where we're trying to work with Office of Tech Transfer and also so that it's not just, it's not so closely like dependent upon a few specific individuals.
And also all of your books, all of the books there can be exported as
Right.
PDFs or EPUBs. And so, I mean, let's say the worst thing happens and Royce dies tomorrow and nobody picks up the job, then you can just export all the books as PDFs and put them on a website somewhere.
PDFs or HTML. So like for any book that you go to, download, you have the download options here. You can also access it as JSON, so the programmers in here. You can get to the actual, you can go through and you can download all the contents directly that way, but then also any individual chapters you have. Variety of formats available. So this could be then ported to another system if needed.
And you would say like having the BYU logo and so much buy-in from other departments also adds to kind of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So like, if our department just decided tomorrow, we're not gonna do this anymore, like the Italian department would have something to say about that. They would be invested in their department.
So two questions. So, I would assume, does this mean that we can take like a specific chapter and embed it into like Brightspot or Canvas? Okay, you can.
Yeah, so the easiest way of doing that is, yeah, just any chapter, you can just grab the URL and like in Canvas, I just grab the URL and I include it as an external external URL and embeds it just like a Google Doc or anything else. One of the things, next steps coming down the road is LTI integration, which I have a basic version of working right now. But ultimately, we'll get to a point where you can be in Canvas, you say add a chapter from EdTech books, you can embed it, and then you can talk back and forth. Where like if you do learning checks in EdTech books, it'll send your free book. That's the ultimate goal with that part of it. But you can embed it right now just as content. So any classes that you've taken, like if you've taken my classes, you'll see this stuff embedded all throughout your Canvas courses, and that's just a simple link. So another big picture thing. So it's not just BYU doing this. BYUI is actually the biggest user. So this is books.byui.edu. And so this even tells you how invested they are. Like it's the books subdomain, like BYU Idaho books, this is where it goes. And so they're increasingly putting a lot of stuff on here. One of the most recent ones I've seen is American Heritage. The American Heritage course is going on here. And so I've been helping them in that. But yeah, so they're doing a lot more and there's a lot of interest and buy-in there. And most of the stuff they're putting on, they actually haven't even published yet, so you don't see it. If you come to the library, you don't see it here, but there is a lot you see here. But most of it is actually behind the scenes. Here's the American Heritage one that I'm working on. I need to help them get a better cover, but yeah. Declaration of Independence is great, but maybe different representation of it would be great. Yeah.
So I'm curious, I was just thinking about these different universities. Let's say there was a department up there that wanted to pull pieces of books from books that are already there. Do they have the ability to say, I just want these chapters custom create their own textbooks?
Yeah, so any content that you go to, if you're logged in, and since this isn't my machine, I'm not gonna log in, but if you log in, you'll see a copy button here, so you can copy an individual chapter into your book. Or if you go to the main book, you can click copy or import, and you can import as many or as much as you want. And that's dependent upon the license of the book. So as long as the book allows it with the Creative Commons licenses associated with it, you can just click one button, copy it all over, and then you.
The original idea I had for the foundations book was there was going to be a section of the book that was department specific. So I envisioned that there was going to be like a different version of the book for every university. And like the IP&T version would then have chapters about like the history of our department and like kind of seminal works from our faculty over the, you know what I mean? but that just never took off. You find that a lot of people just don't have the time or stomach to want to do these things, but you could.
Yeah. Let me just answer the original question that Rick asked me and then take more questions. So next steps, next steps are growing kind of the vision in that way with more institutions, like working more with BYU Idaho and BYU outside of the IP&T department to expand resources. In terms of like the system itself, doing a lot more with using AI, but in ways that people don't necessarily anticipate, like, because it's different from like how, I don't know, most people would use AI, doing things like generating like summaries that then go back to the author, say, okay, do you like the summary? You can use, or generating keywords out of content so that you as the author don't have to go in and decide all your keywords. Rick mentioned the definition feature, so if you highlight a term, it'll go and look it up. If it doesn't know the term, you should come back in a minute or two and then look at it. Like advanced writing, it's not gonna know, but, oh no, it does know. Someone did that already. But so, yeah, so it's a learning definition or learning dictionary. Other things with AI, gonna be doing it so that it'll automatically tag images with alt tags, so it can determine what's in the image and then she puts the alt tag there for accessibility, other accessibility features like that. We actually don't have EPUBs right now, that's coming down the road, LTI integration's coming down the road. Lots of just really cool, crazy little things like that. I have a student, so Natalie's doing her, like, I have lots of students doing projects right now, but like, if you're using this, one of the things Natalie's trying to help me figure out is how to make this interface more usable. Cause I just get a lot of questions about things, how to do things that are really simple. And so she's gonna help me figure out, just further improve the usability of it. A lot of students do projects related to content, so they'll like work with a particular faculty member, like the chemistry department, like Rebecca Sansom in the chemistry department to move content over to create a particular textbook. So done a lot of master's projects like that. So in terms of how students can participate by helping create content, but also participate by helping to develop or test or evaluate tools within the system, things like dashboard development, interface development, and those kinds of things. Were there questions? Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about light and learning and maybe we could get the professors who didn't respond.
Sorry.
And their list of applications.
We looked at a lot of things.
Probably the professors in there are not the ones you're worried about, but maybe, I don't know.
But Tyler, do you tell us what light and learning is real quick?
What's that?
You want to tell us what light and learning is real quick?
It's a list of the open scholarship from all of the professors, alum, anyone who has anything to do with us over the last year.
This was for the year 2022. We need to start the 2023 one now, but yeah.
So if you want to see what they're working on currently, that's where you go.
It is too that we could like print this out and I just put it on the dean's desk so they know what we're doing. Yeah. Anything?
I've been working with a couple of professors in the business department, and I just am wondering, like, if they're interested in putting one of their textbooks on here, who do we give them their information, or how do we go about it?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. Like, I like to try to connect them with the student who serves like as a project manager and helping them to do that. But then like all the technical stuff I can do. I have other students right now, like Nathan Standing is doing his project on, he's developing boot camps to help people do that kind of stuff. Yeah, just let them reach out to me. And if nothing else, it's one of the cool things, but also the frustrating things is I get on here all the time and I see people doing stuff. I don't even know what's going on. So like, I'll come in and they'll like Stephanie Moore's ethics book. They'll be completely done. I'm like, wow, this is great. And I didn't even know she was doing this. But there are lots of things like that happening. But so like, if nothing else, just lets me know what people are interested in and then I know how to best support them. But yeah.
Yay, I think that's probably it, unless there's a final question. Okay, seeing none, can I just ask for a round of applause for Royce for building this? There you go.
All right, we also want to thank Rick for putting this together. We'll be back here again next week for another seminar. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next week.